Hello and welcome to the mini finance sessions with Tim Webb, Tom Senegals, and your part-time host for today, Henry Elliston. It was my birthday last week, so I couldn't make it, and I'm going to Cornwall next week for a weekend, so I won't be around then. So I'm hosting today, and hopefully we have 5 minutes of scintillating tidbits on the coronavirus and how the economy is going to fare coming out of coronavirus and what we're seeing and what we think might happen in the future. So to kick things off, Tim, have you seen anything or got any feelings about what we're going to be doing with coronavirus and getting the economy moving when the vaccine comes along, or maybe before?
Yeah. I mean, starting off sort of non-market related, non-tax related, and all that sort of stuff. Something I've noticed just from chatting to clients and new clients and that sort of thing is people are sort of taken on this view of what I've dubbed sort of micro protectionism, where everyone is being forced to spend so much time at home, etc. I think a lot of people have been more focused on or appreciating the need to sort of take care of themselves, both from a health perspective clearly, but obviously everyone, I don't know, more clients than not I've spoken to have completely revamped and overhauled their gardens and all that sort of stuff. It's just a case of making sure that your nest egg, etc., is looked after. I think that will continue moving forward. No matter what happens to the economy side, I think the sort of societal, I think that will be quite key moving forward, which is a nice thing. I think it's a nice thing to refocus people's perspectives, because ultimately that's what matters, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something which I've noticed just from chatting to people.
It's been said quite a lot, I think, just generally, that people's feelings are now that they won't go back to the office certainly in the same way that they did before. So, whereas we all now know that we can use Zoom to have meetings with our clients and each other. Actually, a lot of us will now just want to carry on working from home. And actually, I think that's got huge benefits, hasn't it, in terms of family life and spending more time at home with your children and what have you, walking your dog, and not having to sit on a smelly old train commuting into London. But of course it does. I mean, it does throw up the question of what happens to youngsters who still need to go into the conurbations to get trained, and of course what happens to those guys who want to go out and socialise at night. And it's fine for me because I'm an old fuddy-duddy, as I believe we were talking about last week, with a wife and kids at home. But I certainly remember back in my 20s, Tim, I can remember that long ago. That actually after a long week at work, I did quite fancy going out to the pub with my mate, and I just wonder I wonder how we see that moving forward, because I don't, the bars aren't going to have as many people in them, I suspect, in the future.
I think from speaking to people who've actually been working from home pre-lockdown, I think they find that still going into the office a couple of days a week does help them in terms of getting other projects done and other things. So I think there'll be a hybrid, but I think it is making people realise what's most important. You're never going to look back at the end of your life and think, thank God I've got a really good title on my business card. It's there's more to life than that, and I think that's what I think, as much as we focus on financial planning, ultimately the end goal is to get people to do things with their money rather than just leaving a big pile of cash. And I think it's been a good time for people to kind of think about what's actually important to them. Why am I working? Why am I doing these things? And really focus on building a better life rather than just having sort of fixated ideas about I need X in my pension or Y in my ISA.
Have you done your garden then, Tom? Have you stopped fixating on your ISA savings?
Yeah, I'm not so green fingered, despite having a summer job. We're talking about my many jobs beforehand. I did spend a summer gardening, but realised I'm not very good at it. Time is money. I get someone else to do my garden.
Me. One of the articles I read over the weekend was addressing how Dishy Rishi, as I believe he's now commonly known, is going to try to pay off this new burden of debt that he's taking on, given that the Tory manifesto promised that they wouldn't increase income tax, VAT, or national insurance contributions. Do you guys got any thoughts as to which taxes are going to be pushed up and by how much?
Well, I think it's go on.
Yeah, I think they've kind of tied themselves to the mast a little bit, haven't they? If you say you can't change any of these taxes, then I don't know. It's all great putting that in a manifesto, but it proves just like with assets. If you put all your eggs in one basket and think everything's going to stay the same, then sure as anything, something else will come along and kind of ruin that idea. So I think they'll either break the manifesto pledge, and in some ways they've got enough political capital to do so, given the climate. But otherwise, they're going to come for things like CGT or capital gains tax.
I think they'll be able to, though, just because of the exceptional circumstances. I think, who had the foresight to know that any of this sort of nonsense was going to unfold in this year? I think they would be able to do, within reason, go back on what they said they were going to do, or do what they want, really, and just say, look, we need to do this because of what the response that we've had to give. Personally, but CGT, changing CGT. I mean, I think that's arguably a bit of a long time coming, because the system has been set up for so long now for existing wealth, to be taxed far less than those who are trying to build capital, i.e. income tax has been much higher historically than capital gains tax. I mean, obviously,
you could argue with capital gains tax. Well, actually, I mean, even I was about to say, with the exception perhaps of second properties, but even perhaps not accepting those, a lot of the wealth that you've generated from those gains has come from pre-taxed money. Certainly if you're going to save money into a unit trust, that might just be additional money that you're saving every month because your income is sufficient and you're sufficiently prudent not to spend everything that you earn. So why then, in much the same way that inheritance tax is the same thing, should you then have a double whammy of tax just for being prudent and saving?
It'd be interesting to see how much increasing CGT, capital gains tax, will actually have an effect. I think it's a bit like the additional rate tax. Increasing it from 45 to 50% doesn't actually make a big difference in the finances. And I think sometimes these are done for political manoeuvring rather than anything actual sensible. And I think there has been some criticism of some of the recent policy decisions. Admittedly, though, they all seem quite short term. But I think CGT is pretty low, but it's very hard to pay CGT as it is if you're investing in, say, a diversified portfolio, because you've got sufficient allowances between yourself and maybe a partner. And if you're harvesting it every year like we do for our clients, then CGT is not too much of a problem. But it is one of the lower rates. Whether they put it back up to what it was in line with CGT on property, that might be something they do.
Or even worse, align it with income tax rates.
Yeah, that would be,
which
would be a big deal, wouldn't it?
20, 40 or 45%. Yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting. It'd be really interesting to see when the budget, I think, is in October, isn't it? So it'll be really interesting to see what Rishi decides, whether or not it's capital gains tax or income tax.
But you'll just see people go back into bonds, both onshore and offshore, and just do the roll up and pay it over time. Or it's not. I don't know.
An investment bond, to be clear, rather than a government bond.
Premium bond.
Yeah, or premium bond.
Yeah, although premium bonds, I've just noticed cash accounts have actually gone down. Previous accounts that were high paying, like Marcus, have all kind of come off the boil. And actually, premium bonds doesn't sound like too bad a shout these days. I never thought I'd be saying that, but
chance of winning £1 million, and if they do, Tom, presumably you're the man to come to with their winnings and ask for how best to invest them.
Yeah, any premium bond winners who'd like to make contact, please do. And equally, if I win £1 million, I will share £10 each with both of you.
Thanks very much. And on that bombshell, I think we'll leave it there for this week. I've gone silent on mine, so I don't know if this computer's working right now, but provided it is, thanks very much for listening. Any comments, please do pop them in the box below. Delighted to see it. And hopefully Tom and Tim will have a wonderful, insightful 5 minutes for you all next week.